Hi everybody, I'm Susan Mulvihill. I'm coming to you from Spokane, Washington, where the hardiness zone is 5B to 6A. Did you know that spring is a great time to do pruning? I've got all sorts of tips and best practices to share with you today so you can prune with confidence. The two main goals in pruning are to either fix a problem or to help fruiting trees and shrubs produce better for you. You do not need to prune just because you have a pair of pruners. So you always need to have a goal in mind before you get started so you don't get carried away. I'm standing out in the middle of our small orchard. We have 18 trees and we are growing apples, pears, cherries, peaches, and plums. Some better than others, what with our crazy climate. Now, some of them are the originals that we planted 34 years ago, such as this Fuji tree back here. And they're looking pretty gnarly, but they still produce well for us. Some of our trees are quite small because we have replaced ones that either have died or they just weren't doing well for us. So we really have a mix. Now, when you are pruning fruit trees, and actually any kind of a tree or shrub, you always want to start with the 3 Ds: dead, damaged, and diseased branches. So eliminate those first and then really focus on what you see on the tree. So I want to show you a couple of different kinds of cuts that you may need to do, and this way you'll know how to do them. I want to take this branch off, so I'm using some nice sharp pruners, and I'm going to cut at the base of the branch, just like that. Now I also want to point out, do you see this sort of orangey yellow stuff? That is lichen on the tree. It is not damaging the tree in any way, so don't worry about that if you encounter that on any of your trees. I also want to remove this branch because it is headed up through the middle of the tree, and that's not going to work. So I want to make a cut here at the base where you can see kind of a crinkly thing that's called a branch collar. Don't leave stub cuts like so. Instead, snip down to the base of the branch, just like that. I'm not planning to prune off this big branch from our Macintosh apple tree because it's still very vibrant and very productive. But I did want to give you an explanation of how you would remove a large branch from a tree, just in case you'd need to. So the thing that you're trying to avoid is damaging the rest of the tree when you remove a branch. This obviously would be very heavy. And so what I usually do is go out a little ways and prune off some of the farther out parts of the branch just to remove a little bit of the weight. Then what I would do is a cut out a few inches from where I'm going to remove it from the tree and take a pruning saw and cut upwards about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch depending upon the diameter of the branch. Then what I would do is come out farther, saw off the branch, and then I'll make the final cut, and that is to cut basically like so. You don't want to damage the bark on the trunk, and you don't want to damage any of the wood in the trunk. So again, you're just coming down like so. Now the purpose of that first cut that's out a ways from the trunk of the tree is to prevent, when you make the cut, having the bark just rip down the side of the tree, because that's going to cause a lot of damage. It could even kill the tree depending upon how serious it was. So again, what you want to do with a heavy branch is eliminate a few of the outer parts of the branch to eliminate a little bit of the weight. Make a cut out a few inches from the bottom side going upwards, maybe 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. Then take off the branch. Then do your final cleanup cut, and that is here. So I'm in our blueberry bed right now, and the goal with pruning blueberries in the spring is to make sure that each bush has a nice mix of 1-, 2-, and 3-year-old canes. So how do you tell the difference? Well, first of all, The brand new canes have a very bright green bark, and it's usually fairly shiny. The 2-year-old canes tend to have more of a goldish color to the bark, and the 3-year-old canes have more of a gray type of a bark. So in addition to that, the other thing that you're looking for, and I can see some examples right here, are canes that have died. And here is one right here. And here's another one that is in the process of dying. It's got that red and brown coloration on the stalk. The other thing you want to eliminate is crossing branches, and I can see this one is heading off in the wrong direction. So we'll systematically go through each bush and make sure that we've eliminated crossing branches, dead branches, and then if you have a whole lot of older canes, maybe prune off a couple of those, and that should do it. Now I do want to let you know that I have a video that is specifically about pruning blueberries. It is much more detailed than what I just gave you. Today I'm just giving you an overview of pruning different types of things in your landscape. So I will put a link to it in the description for this video on my YouTube channel. If you have flowering shrubs that you want to prune, think about when they're going to bloom. So this is a rhododendron, and you can see there's all sorts of flower buds here. So it's going to give us some beautiful flowers in about a month. I do not want to miss out on a single flower, and so I am not going to do any remedial pruning on it until after they have bloomed. So this is a hydrangea, and specifically vanilla strawberry. Chances are you've seen it in some of my summertime videos when it's just absolutely covered in flowers, and it is gorgeous. Right now it is very much dormant, that's for sure. But the thing with hydrangeas is that some varieties bloom on new wood and some bloom on old wood. So you have to know which is which before you start doing your pruning. If you don't know what the variety is that you're growing, because maybe you just bought a house and it was in the landscape, watch it for a year or two to see what its routine is and which kind of wood it blooms on. But in this case, what my goal has been for pruning it was to give it a nice open shape, evenly spaced branches, and so far it's doing really great. Now when it comes to pruning roses, certainly the 3Ds are what you want to address first. And I probably also better address what these beautiful flowers are. This is Iris reticulata, and the variety is Catherine Hodgkin. Now on this rose cane, you can see that this is completely black, so that is dead. Now the tissue does start getting lighter here, more towards green at the base of the plant, but I can see little red spots, and that means the tissue has got problems. So this is something where I would want to prune it down to the base of the rose bush. Now I wanted to show you examples of troublesome canes. Canes should be nice and green if they're healthy and vibrant. If you look at these two canes, do you see the red spots on here and also on here? So this entire cane is red from the tip all the way down to the base. And when I look at it in the center, it is dead as can be. So that one came off down at the base, and the same with this one. So when you see this type of mottling on a rose cane, that means it's in trouble and it's going to die. So you have to be brave and remove them. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we live in hardiness zone 5B to 6A. And because of this, I am very careful about the types of roses I will grow in our garden, because in the old days I lost a lot of them to our tough winters. So I only will grow own root or non-grafted roses. When you have a grafted rose, You're dealing with a rootstock that is a super hardy type, and then the variety that you're wanting to grow has been grafted onto it. If you have a really tough winter, that graft union can die, and then what happens is instead of the apricot colored roses, let's say, that you've been enjoying, you have a lot of little red roses, and that means the rootstock took over. So if you also live in a very cold climate, consider getting non-grafted roses. And you know, even if you have a super tough winter and the plant dies down to the ground, don't dig it up, don't give up on it, because more often than not, it will come right back. Okay, you can see I really opened up that rose quite a bit. I removed any canes that had red on them and removed anything that was heading into the center of the plant. So that's quite a haircut, but that's what you need to do with roses. Just take your time, make a cut, step back, make another cut, step back, take a look at the plant, and make sure that you're cutting the right ones off. Now the shrub in the background outside our dining room window is a Calycanthus Aphrodite sweet shrub. This is a spectacular shrub, amazingly hardy, and it has beautiful long pointed leaves and gorgeous red flowers. It looks so tropical. I was sure it would not grow here in Spokane, but it does. However, I'm looking at it and seeing some things that need to go. Let me point them out to you. First of all, see how this branch is coming over the remainder of the flower bed? That is a problem, so I want to rein it back in a little bit. And you know, with all pruning, don't take a massive cut unless you absolutely know what you want to take off. A lot of times, if you just take off part of an offending branch, then you can stop and take a look and decide, do I want to take off more? I definitely want to shorten this branch. There's nothing wrong with taking a slow approach to this, because as you probably figured out, you can't put the branches back on after you've cut them. So I'm going to take this back a little bit more and this one off. Again, because it's heading over this bed. And also you'll notice I'm using a loppers. Always use the right tool for the job. With the roses I was able to use pruners for the most part, but in this case I can see that with the diameter of these branches I really need to use a loppers. So now I can make the final cut on the branch that was heading out. You can see I have other ones that need to come off that are heading forward, and especially those small diameter branches on the right hand side at the base of the shrub. Okay, that is looking much better. Now there are more branches that could come off, but I pruned off quite a few. I don't want to overdo it, so that's all that I'm going to do for this year's pruning. Now some of you might remember the story behind this poor hawthorn tree that's not looking so good. It was absolutely gorgeous. And then in the summer of 2022, it went straight to winter. It totally bypassed fall. And we had snowstorm after snowstorm after snowstorm. Well, because the weather changed dramatically, the tree didn't lose its leaves, so that made the branches even heavier, and this poor tree lost so many branches. And this brings up a really important point about pruning. Never remove more than 25% of the branches, which is the tree's canopy, in a year's time. Now, unfortunately, Mother Nature removed quite an awful lot. The tree has bounced back, but you can see there's an awful lot of branches missing. So other than removing those broken branches, and there were a lot, I've just been leaving it alone, letting it recover. The more branches that a tree has, the more there will be leaves that conduct photosynthesis, and that's putting energy into the plant. So we're just kind of letting it go, and then we'll try to tidy it up as it grows a little bit more. But oh, this poor tree, it's such a beautiful one when it has berries and when it's blooming in the spring. And yeah, that was a tough winter. One last thing, don't top your trees. I recently noticed several trees near my grocery store had been subjected to tree topping, and it just made me cringe. This so-called pruning job was likely done with a chainsaw, and it is so damaging to trees. Why? It violates what I just said about not removing too many branches from a tree and not cutting into the wood of the tree. It causes weak branches which will break during snowstorms or windstorms. There won't be enough leaves to bring energy to the tree so it can grow normally, and it can cause the tree to rot. So my advice to you is to follow the guidelines that I shared in this video. And certainly don't pay someone to damage your trees like this. If your trees are too large for you to prune, hire a certified arborist who will do a proper job. Enough said. Now I realize today I've been sharing with you a less than polished landscape because we're just emerging from a tough winter and I have a lot of cleanup to do. But there's not a huge rush, so I'm okay with that. I do hope that this video was helpful and gave you some ideas about how to approach pruning within your landscape, and I really appreciate your watching today. Remember to like and subscribe. Happy gardening, everybody.